Well, happy July, everyone. July 1st, another Wednesday evening here on the Carolinas Weather Group, and we're excited to have you joining us tonight. Last week we had Holly Bailey on talking about her book, and actually we've got some very good tweets about that. A lot of people went out and read her book, so we're happy that happened, so I wanted to give Holly that little shout-out at the beginning of the show. But tonight we have on the Fox 46 guys, we have Mr. Rob Eicher and James Bearton on with us. We try to get Nick Kozer on, but he has to sleep right now. He has to get his beauty sleep as he has morning duty. So maybe we can get Nick on some other time. But we're excited to have Rob and James on tonight. We're just going to kind of talk a little about weather, about their passion and their history in weather and what they think of Carolina weather. They've both been in the area for a couple of, or probably about a year, 2 years almost now. So we're excited to get their take on the Carolinas and weather-wise. And so please stick around and join us this evening. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. We are a live broadcast. We do have a question and answer section. Excuse me. So if you want to ask a question, feel free to do that. Joey will be monitoring Twitter and Facebook as well if you have any questions via social media. And you can also download this on the podcast later on tonight or tomorrow morning once Ricky gets it uploaded. So with all that out, I am going to pass it over to Joey, who you guys haven't seen for a while. Joey's kind of taking a little vacation, doing a couple of things here and there. So Joey, it's good to have you back tonight.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been away. I don't have a lot to say tonight, to be honest with you. There's not a lot of weather going on in my area. It just stays away from me. I'm firmly entrenched in my little bubble, so everything's good. Let's just go to Ricky and let's start talking to these guys, get some questions in.
We can do that, and we'll toss it up to Ricky, who's not in Bristol, Tennessee tonight. He's on a assignment, secret location. So, Ricky, it's all yours.
Yeah, not so secret. I'm just south of Asheville. Vacation trip for a day.
We were trying to make it, a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I'm doing the Greg Fishel route, and I'm on a secret location trip.
Undisclosed.
There you go.
I mean, technically my camera's off, so it is kind of undisclosed. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited to have Rob and James joining us tonight. I've met Rob a few times, but James, we've never met in person, but I see you on Twitter.
We tweeted a couple times.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people I meet go. I meet them on Twitter first, and then I run into them at a conference or in their work or something like that. But you two are great meteorologists over at Fox 46, and we're happy to have you on tonight. So why don't we just go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background, then we'll go from there afterwards. And Rob, if you want to start off, we'll throw to you first.
All right. I grew up in Maryland. Went to school at the University of Maryland. My undergraduate degree was actually in earth sciences, and earth and environmental sciences. And as part of that, I started taking more and more meteorology classes, and got to know some of the meteorology professors there, and kind of leaned more and more in that direction. And one of the professors said, "Hey, why don't you stick around and join us for grad school?" We started doing, and I did. We were doing research mostly on air pollution meteorology, forecasting the high pollution events and that sort of thing. Actually flying around in a Cessna 172 over the Baltimore, Washington area taking air pollution measurements, and was doing that. And I had after a couple of years of school, I had the opportunity to actually take a summer off, and I thought, I'm going to go down to the beach and join my friends. And while I was there, I thought, oh well, I might as well, maybe try to get a summer job. And I was going to, wait tables. I actually had a job lined up driving a limo, and I was going to do that. And I thought, oh, what the heck? I'll send a resume to the TV station down there, thinking maybe they need someone to sweep the floors, and that could be kind of fun or whatever. And they called me up 2 days after I sent the resume, and they said, you want to be our weekend weather guy? And I was like, on TV? Yeah, come on down. We'll join us. If we'll tell you what we have in mind. And I ended up working there part-time, driving back and forth between there on the eastern shore of Maryland and the University of Maryland for a year until I finished my master's degree, and then worked in television full-time. And the rest, as they say, is history. Worked in Maryland for 4 years, and then Florida for 10 years, and then came here almost 2 years ago. December will be 2 years.
It's really been 2 years. Wow. It seems like...
Yeah, believe it or not.
But I guess it really has been. And James, you're a little bit newer to the Fox 46 crew, or at least the meteorology side, correct?
Yeah, I've actually only been with Fox since about the new year, around the holidays. I moved up from Georgia where I was working previously. I grew up on Long Island, was involved with the weather community there. We had all 4 seasons, snow, have some memories of working at a local radio station there and doing school closings one very long winter, night after night after night. But I studied at the University of Georgia. I studied digital broadcast journalism as well as atmospheric sciences. Met some great people there. Professor Dr. Marshall Shepard, who is now on the Weather Channel, was one of my professors there. And then after school, went to a station in the middle of nowhere in Columbus, Georgia. Did web work for them and some weather work, and we got some interesting weather that rolled through my time there, being down in the south, or at least further south than we are here, and then had the opportunity to move up to Charlotte about the start of the new year, where they hired me on to do web, and then as the story goes, there was the opportunity to help Rob and Nick out in the Weather Center, and so I've been doing that for a few months now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I've been having a blast. So that's kind of the short version of it, and I guess, looking forward to continuing to work with these guys, even as, I think we will be bringing on some extra hands shortly, but we are experimenting with some digital aspects which really tie into the core of my studies and interest, and excited to roll some of that out too. We actually were playing with Periscope the other day, so it's kind of just like weather is constantly changing, so is the landscape that we storytell, and that's kind of my interest in the department.
Yeah, Fox 46 has always been kind of the new thinker in the Charlotte world, the digital side and the news side and really everything. And with you on the digital side, and then Rob, you being the current AMS Broadcast Board president, they kind of go hand in hand together to bring some new light into this industry.
Yeah, I mean, I love having James around because his knowledge of the new technology in terms of social media and Periscope is amazing. That really helps me out. His first day, he was hired as a web guy. He walks back into the weather center and he says, "Oh, can you give me can you tell me which National Weather Service offices are on chat?" And I was like, "You know about NWS chat?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just need I just need the codes." And I'm like, "You know about that?" I was like, "That's fantastic." I was like, "We have a web guy that actually knows like our side of things. That's amazing."
Yeah, I'm gonna need to go talk to my web guy when I get back to Bristol here.
Teach him about NWS chat.
Yeah. I did try to explain to them why we have 4 offices in our area.
I think I have 5, if last count, because I've got Charleston, West Virginia, Blacksburg, Greenville, Spartanburg, Morristown, and then Jackson, Kentucky. But who's counting? They're all great, and they all have little things about them. But going back to the Periscope thing, how have you guys been utilizing that? And really, have you seen a decent following, or has it just been random people?
The thing is so new, I would hesitate to say a decent following just yet. To be frank, just because we've only done it a handful of times, we've really only had it for a couple weather events. Saturday, though, I think was the perfect example of how we could use it. From a broadcast side, it's kind of a sensitive nature when we interrupt program and when we don't, and Rob could probably speak more to that from his decision point and his expertise. But we had sports on, and we had some strong thunderstorms rolling through the area. Really, nothing that we would typically interrupt for, and especially live sports. So we kind of we put the cell phone on a tripod and stuck in front of one of the big monitors, and essentially did weather cut-ins online, and just kind of gives us an extra channel to not only have two-way communication with folks, but to kind of maximize all of our means of communication, all of our channels, if you will. And I think when we couple those all together, we can do some pretty strong stuff. And from a television standpoint, I think coming into this, we have a kind of a leg up because we have all these visual tools already at our fingertips.
Especially in a world, where more people are mobile, and as anyone who really follows the television side knows, where they're trying to get more digital and more mobile. And so, Rob, speaking from a person who probably covers a lot of this on air, did you adapt anything? Did you do it any differently?
For Periscope?
Yeah, for any type of severe weather stuff on Periscope.
I haven't tried the Periscope yet. James has been actually he's been pioneering that, and he's tried it a couple times in the last couple of weeks. Each time I've been out of town, so I haven't even I didn't even know he was doing it until afterwards. So I know I gotta get some best practices and some advice from him actually on how to do some of that stuff.
Big fonts and don't go 16 by 9. Keep everything like very skinny. But no, I mean, yeah, we've only done it like 3 times now, so it's still something we're playing with, trying to see how many people use that avenue, coupled with some of the other live streaming things. At my last station, we did a lot of live streaming of, I guess we'll categorize them as strong weather events, because anything severe, obviously, we were on the air for. And we found that after a while, we did get a dedicated audience for it, and it also put the station at a really strategic point where if we were covering a strong weather event online and then something went severe, we already had everybody in position, and with a flip of the switch could then just pivot right onto television. So it's kind of couples nicely together.
Just for the record, one night on our show here, that was a tornado. I think it was in Arkansas. And we just started talking about it and covering it. Ricky just kind of went on like it was like a live coverage. Still the most viewed show we've ever had. So
really? Wow.
Yeah. And that was just on a whim. Like we didn't do anything. We were doing our show, and then it was like it was happening, and we were all kind of watching it while we were doing the show. We just jumped into like talking about it, and next thing I know, I went down and we had like 400 viewers.
Rob and James, both speaking of social media, how have you seen that evolve in the past couple of years with weather coverage? I mean, it seems like everybody now is on Facebook or Twitter. How has that helped you guys do your weather forecasting or broadcasting while you're on TV or getting ready for a broadcast?
I love social media, especially during severe weather, because, you know, as James kind of said, you get these times where you get maybe some severe thunderstorms or even just some strong thunderstorms. Not necessarily something that you want to cut in for, especially if it's, you know, primetime programming. If we're cutting into like American Idol or NFL, there better be an EF3 tearing through Uptown. Otherwise, it's our jobs. So there are times like that when we can't necessarily be on TV to get the word out. But we still want to tell people, hey, this is a pretty dangerous storm. Hey, watch out for this. And I love social media for that, especially Twitter for that. I think it's just it's another way to kind of get the message out there when TV is not an option.
And you get a lot of viewer, and I just was looking at my cell phone. Stuart McDaniel is watching the show tonight, and you get a lot of viewer photos, just like Stuart, who had an excellent picture last night of a shelf cloud.
Yes, thank you, by the way, Stuart. That was an awesome picture. I have to admit, the first time I saw it, I thought, is that real? Because it was so beautiful, so pretty. I thought it had to be fake, but obviously it wasn't. But yeah, no, I appreciate that the social media, anytime there's a severe thunderstorm and damage reports start coming in, first thing I do is go check Facebook and Twitter to see if there's any pictures of the damage out there, because, you know, nothing grabs viewers on TV like pictures of storm damage. And you guys, I have to admit, are some of the first people that I turn to see what's out there. So thank you.
Go ahead, James.
I was just going to say, as broadcasters, I think we kind of use social media and images and people on the ground the same way National Weather Service uses Skywarn. It's a way to verify, it's a way to storytell, it's a way to put the pieces together. So I think coupled all together, you know, social media really does create a two-way avenue for meteorologists.
It does, and living in the Charlotte market, you guys at Fox 46 are the station that shows the most pictures, the most of what's going on in people's backyards, and I think people connect with that as they say, hey, you know, I saw that in my backyard as well, so I give props to you guys for making it a little bit more community-based and local-based with showing those pictures.
Well, thank you. And again, we appreciate the pictures. We love them. And anytime any of you guys or anyone watching, if you have a picture, if you've got a picture of damage, please send it to us. I will use it. I will use it in several platforms on several newscasts. At Fox 46 Rob on Twitter, Fox 46 Rob on Facebook as well, or just email rob.eicher@foxtv.com. Send me those pictures.
And I think he's watching that, even if Brad tries to steal it. We won't say his bad name.
The advantage is that I have a 10 o'clock newscast, and he has an 11 o'clock. So if you send the picture to both of us, I get to show it first.
Ricky?
So we're talking a little bit about digital media, and Rob, you just spearheaded a great conference in Raleigh, which I unfortunately wasn't able to attend. But talk a little bit about what went on there, and just fill viewers in who may not be in the know about it as to what it was and the capacity the AMS played in.
Yeah, the conference was the 43rd annual Broadcast Meteorology Conference, the American Meteorological Society conference, and we do it annually, usually in June, and it's a nationwide conference, and it just happened to be this year it was in our backyard in Raleigh. Large reason for that is being the chairman of the board, I get to pick the location, so I picked Raleigh. But previous year was Lake Tahoe. Next year is actually going to be in Austin. But what was kind of unique about this year is that there's another. AMS has lots of conferences. Their big one is the annual one in January. But they have lots of smaller groups, and ours is obviously the broadcast side. But this year, our conference was joint with the third conference on weather warnings and communications, which is mainly folks from the National Weather Service and emergency managers, and also experts in communication like Dr. Susan Jasko. So we did the conferences joint together, so we had our two groups together in Raleigh, and it's a really good marriage because you have the people that actually issue the warnings and the people that help communicate the warnings kind of together, working on how best to get the message out. And there were a lot of, almost silly things when you think about it, but very important things like, what color should a tornado warning be? What color should a severe thunderstorm warning? So there's whole presentations on simple things like colors that sounds almost elementary, but research has shown that that's actually really important if you want to get someone's attention. Is just the color of the tornado warning or the color of the severe thunderstorm warning. Stuff like that matters and gets people to pay attention. So there are presentations on that. We actually had. We had a pretty international showing. Had people from the UK, people from New Zealand, even from India there, and that was also interesting because we got to see how they do their warnings. They do things very, very differently in the United Kingdom and New Zealand than we do here. We have, I think at last check, 127 something different weather service warnings. New Zealand has 20-something, and they thought that was too many, and they're looking for ways to kind of slim that down. The United Kingdom has one, and that's it. It's almost like the terror scale. It's either green, yellow, or red, and the weather is always either green, yellow, and red, and they don't specify whether that red is for tornado or for a thunderstorm or whether it's for snow. It's either green, yellow, or red. So it's kind of interesting to see how different people, different countries do the warnings differently than we do here in the United States.
It's interesting you mentioned that because talking from a broadcast standpoint, with the green, yellow, and red, that kind of puts a little more emphasis, I would think, on the weather service partners to communicate the forecast, because if you're not getting the threat exactly from the weather service, you kind of have to find it from a different source.
Right. I think, yeah, if you simplify it that much, then it obviously forces you to explain what the danger is, what the red is. But it may, in that process of that explanation, may simplify things and make it easier for the viewer to understand. I mean, we had a case this past winter where across the Carolinas we had, I think that couple counties were under an ice storm warning. A few other counties were under a winter storm warning. Some were under a freezing rain advisory. I mean, we had 4 or 5 different warnings and advisories for basically the same winter storm. And I know, Ricky, as you being a broadcaster, it's probably frustrating to you spend 2 or 3 minutes just explaining the different types of warnings and what the different things mean. It would almost be easier to say, there's a warning, whatever you want to call it, for ice or winter. There's a winter warning to color the whole county, all of our counties in red, and that might just be easier than trying to explain the different types of warnings. I'm not suggesting that we go all the way to maybe what the United Kingdom does, but I think there's definitely some room for simplification.
And James, from a social media standpoint, there's probably a lot less confusion and information being spread, or maybe disinformation at times, when it's all simplified as well.
Yeah, and I do think one of the things you see online a lot is the classic people not understanding maybe the difference between a watch or a warning, and I always tell people, whether it's news or weather, like, choose your sources wisely, because you're going to take it probably for truth when you see it, and so whoever you follow online, when they're giving out the information, you want to know that they're credible, that they're knowledgeable, and so I always encourage people to kind of kind of do their homework when subscribing to an account or choosing who they're going to get their life-saving information from. The discussion that we're having actually reminds me a little bit of what Rob and I were talking about the other day, speaking of bulletins with the special weather statement, because we were discussing what to do with that, and so I just wanted to bring that up and throw that out there to see what other folks thought, or where they live, how their local office uses that bulletin, and whether or not that is helping or maybe hurting the public. I've seen it go each way.
That's a good question. That's a good question. The way we do it at our office is anything that's sent out by the National Weather Service, we have text message alerts that we'll send out. We don't break into. We do radio for several stations here in the Western Carolinas, so we don't per se break in for radio updates about that, but we'll push it out on a text message. At least that's how we do it here. I know that some stations, I think Ricky's station up in Bristol, he can talk to you a little bit more about it, but they kind of do live coverage with severe thunderstorm warnings, so they take the thunderstorms a little bit more serious than maybe we do down here.
Yeah, we our special weather statements that come out from one of our 5 offices are automatically added to our Facebook Storm Track 5 page as a text message. But from there, most of the offices try to use it as a heads up. However, I've seen instances to where, one storm with a ton of lightning won't have anything on it. The other storm that looks like it's got nothing will have, a special weather statement. So there's kind of a lack of consistency in how they're issued. But as a broadcaster, it's kind of nice sometimes to have them come out, because it's more of a heads up, and that's why we put them out on our Storm Track 5 page as well. Speaking of the severe thunderstorm warning thing, we have a mandate to break in for all severe thunderstorm warnings in our DMA. We do a quick 30-second cut-in, and that's about it. If it's me, I try to do it over commercials. Everyone else is kind of just whenever, but that's our policy at least. And of course, tornado warnings is on the air.
And they let you break in over commercials.
Well, they've never told us yes or no, so we kind of just break in whenever. And because we have both an NBC station and a Fox station, if it's sports, we'll do a split screen to break in. Or if it's like American Idol or something, we'll still do a split screen just to minimize the overall impact and the viewer emails that we will get anyway. But it's been our policy for several years now to break in for all severe thunderstorm warnings. And because of that, we've kind of gotten the notion of the storm tracking station in the market, which is good and bad, because now people always expect you to be there regardless, no matter how good or I should say weak or strong the storm is. If it's severe to them, they expect something from your station. But it's also nice because we're the one people turn to during severe weather. So.
Yeah, Rob, I was thinking the same thing. If they're cutting in over commercials, none of the salespeople are talking to Ricky, I'm going to guess.
Yeah. We would hear it if we cut in over commercials.
Yeah, there's times, but luckily it hasn't been me yet breaking in over it. So, but I mean, it depends on how the day is going, I should say. But
can I sidetrack us for a second? Speaking, you guys were saying the other day how you were talking about a live tornado, and we were talking about this tornado warning outside Kansas City. I finally my monitor here finally just picked up coverage. There's a new network out there, and I just wanted to throw this out there as a digital type of option for maybe people who don't have cable, and it's not in the Fox family, so don't tell my bosses I'm saying this. But
hopefully they're not watching.
Hopefully they're not watching. CBS News launched a new network called CBSN. It's a digital-only 24-hour news network that you can watch online and on mobile and on Roku, which is what I'm watching it on, and they just cut to KCTV's off-air. So in terms of the availability of this content now, local weather going national, whether you're paying for the Weather Channel through satellite or cable or just the internet. And I'm looking at pictures of clouds now, and this is something that's quickly becoming a discussion matter, and I think is a great example of how we can kind of use some of these digital channels to share what otherwise might be a local happening with a much broader audience.
And we've seen in the past couple months both the Weather Channel and Nightly News use some local station entities. We've had CBS using the Weather Channel or CBS using the Boston CBS affiliate, and then the Weather Channel kind of using their local NBC stations during, I think it's AMHQ in the mornings, to cut to and talk about the weather that's happening. So it's really interesting to see, finally, in my opinion, the involvement of the local stations in the NBC network of the Weather Channel and everything.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Fox News Channel to call me, but it hasn't.
We're kind of talking about just all things weather, and we're talking about break-ins. Rob, what's been your most memorable break-in that you've had to do throughout your career?
Probably the most memorable and the longest was during Hurricane Wilma, which was in 2005 and when I was in Florida, and it didn't directly hit Central Florida. I was in the Orlando area, Central Florida. It went through more southern Florida, but some of the northern outer rain bands produced one tornado after another, after another, after another, after another, and admittedly, we didn't really staff for it because after the hurricanes of 2004, the managers were like, this one's going south, we don't need to worry about it. So it ended up just being me in the weather center, and it was a Sunday night, and we didn't have any other crews out in the field or anything. First tornado warning popped, and I get on there and I'm doing my thing, and it was one after another and after another, and what should have been just, a 25-30 minute cut-in, I ended up being on air for 6.5 or 7 hours straight. Just me. Me and occasionally an anchor who would say, Rob, we just got this into the newsroom, there's some reports of damage or whatever. But yeah, 6.5 or 7 hours. And then finally the morning weather guy came in and relieved me, and we ended up being on air total. It was 17 hours of nonstop tornado warnings. So that's probably the most memorable because it was the longest. But also, there's some things that I had done in there that the station hadn't done before. And they weren't real big on using velocity data on air, and I'm like, I've got 6.5 hours to fill. I'm gonna start using it. And after they saw it, they were like, wow, that's great. Now I see why we should be using that on air. So that kind of changed things, and from then on out, every time there was a tornado warning, they were like, use the velocity stuff more. But that's probably the most memorable, but it was a long night.
Always talk about salespeople and not liking you.
You're right, yeah, exactly.
Speaking of people not liking you, it wasn't 17 hours, but at my last station, it was a CBS station, and I guess it was Sunday football, NFL football. And they don't normally show the Atlanta Falcons, but in this particular situation, however the cards fell, we had the Falcons, and being one market over, that was a big to-do. Somewhere between the first and second quarter, a tornado spun up on the western edge of our coverage area, and for what was probably the first quarter through the tail end of the fourth quarter, we were on air tracking this, what ended up being like an EF2 tornado across the DMA. And somewhere in the middle of the coverage, somebody from the newsroom finally came up and said, the phones won't stop ringing. And I'm like, just disconnect them. Just disconnect them. We have to stay with the tornado that is on the ground. It was just like the worst timing. And the station I was at didn't have the ability to do split screen. So all we could do was weather.
Yeah. I bet you got some nasty letters on that one.
They're probably still coming in.
At least some random score updates in the middle of it.
I think occasionally they were able to pop up a scoreboard, but yeah, that was fun. But nowhere near Rob's story. Rob wins that one.
17 hours. That's insane.
17 hours. I think the worst was Hurricane Francis. We were on. I wasn't me total, obviously, but we were on air. I think nonstop weather coverage for. It was the entire Labor Day weekend, so I think it began Friday afternoon, and we didn't stop until Monday afternoon. So whatever that is, like close to 72 hours nonstop weather coverage. We just did 12-hour shifts on off because Francis just did not move. So frustrating. But we did along James Line. There was a tornado in Florida during a NASCAR race. I forget which one. Fortunately, it wasn't the Daytona because that would have been really bad. But we broke in and we did actually do a split screen, and we still got hundreds and hundreds of phone calls, hundreds and hundreds of emails, hundreds and hundreds. And what made it worse is the anchor started getting snippy because he was tired of all the hate mail. And when finally the tornado warning was over, he said, "All right, fans, you can be happy now and get back to your left-hand turns." That, that lit up the phones even more.
Oops.
Yeah, you can get back to your left-hand turns now.
Yeah, I would be okay with that because I always watch the race and I always put it on mute and listen to the radio anyway. So
That's what Ricky has to look forward to with him being Fox and NBC. He's got all the national races.
I don't even have a choice. Every race now was on one of our two stations, so hopefully we don't get any late season storms. At least on NBC Sports Network for the next 6 races, at least I think, or something like that. But regardless, so Rob, talk a little bit about the hurricanes because you mentioned those in Wilma, and for Scotty and Joey, I remember Hurricane Isabel made landfall along the coast of Virginia, and our stations were on the air for 2 or 3 days continuous because it's just such a big news story. But from a meteorological point of view, 2004 and 2005 were just extreme years in Florida, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I actually just missed out. I moved to Florida and was starting at that TV station in August of 2004, and they wanted me to start the Monday before what would be Hurricane Charlie, but I'd already had plans to be out of town, and I said, well, let's start, how about I start the following Monday? And they were fine with that because obviously this was weeks before Charlie. So Charlie happened, I get there on Monday, and all the weather people are like, thank God we're out of here, because they'd been working nonstop for days, and originally it was supposed to be like 2 or 3 weeks of training, and one of the weather guys actually had a tree fall on his house, and in the process of trying to clear that tree, broke his leg. So I show up, and they're like, all right, you're on air in like 5 minutes, so there's like no orientation or anything. But anyway, I was so upset because I thought, oh no, if I had only started a week before, here I missed, what would probably be the biggest, weather event of my career. I missed the big hurricane. Oh man, I wish I hadn't missed that. Watch what you wish for, because you just might get it. A few weeks later, we have Francis. A few weeks after that, you get Gene, and yeah, Francis, like I said, nonstop for 3 days, and then Gene was almost as bad. My house fortunately came through okay in all of them. I lost a few shingles and lost power for a couple days, but that was about it. Neighbor lost power for 3 weeks. Don't ask me how they lost power for 3 weeks, and I was only for 2 days. But then, yeah, in 2005, everyone remembers 2005 as being Katrina and the year that Louisiana was really hard hit. But yeah, we had 2005. We also had a couple that hit Florida, Wilma being one of them that did. And it wasn't just tropical storm, or not just hurricanes, but we had Tropical Storm Faye a couple years later. 2008 dumped 2 feet of rain in the Orlando area. 2 feet of rain in just a couple of days because a stupid tropical storm just sat there. So living in Florida for 10 years made for some interesting weather coverage. The only downside is there were so many hurricanes, the names start running together, and I can't remember which year was that again. But it did make for an interesting time in my career. 10 years that I will definitely never forget.
And after about the first 2, there's a video somewhere of Rob outside yelling at the sky, wondering, really? Another one?
Yes, there probably is video of that. The sad part is that I really wanted to be out reporting from the beach, but they wouldn't let me because they were like, well, we need the weather people in the studio, and they literally said we're going to send out the expendable people to go do that sort of thing, and they'd send the sports guys. True story. But finally, after we got to Gene, it was like the 3rd day, and they're like, oh, just go. We don't care anymore. So I finally got to go do at least one live report out, at the beach blowing in the wind. But, yeah, a lot of hurricanes and just tornadoes in Florida. And one snow event. That's it.
Well, Rob, I like our setup then, because I think I'm the expendable one. So I get to go out.
That would be you.
Joey, remind me, was it Francis and Ivan in 2004 that came up and affected our areas?
Yes, Francis and Ivan were ours.
I'm telling you, we had catastrophic flooding here in the foothills. Francis produced like 8 or 9 inches, and I mean, they were roads that have never been touched by water, just underwater for days. And at school, I remember, it was my senior year in high school, we were out of school for an entire week just because all the roads were flooded. I mean, it did its damage up here. And in fact, we're going to talk about that in September with Chris Justice. He's going to be coming on talking about the inland effects of hurricanes. But that one just reminds me of just how much flooding that took place up in our area back during those hurricanes.
Yeah, I talked to some guys who worked for the power crews that were up in the mountains for that storm. They said that you could stand up there, and they thought it was thundering with no lightning, but it wasn't thunder. It was just the water rushing through the mountains, and it sounded like it was that loud.
Anytime we see storms at the Panhandle of Florida, we're pretty much in for flooding wise here in the Carolinas. So I haven't had that in a while though.
Yeah, I remember Ivan, because Ivan was the one that's kind of forgotten about in Central Florida because we had Charlie, Gene, and Francis. But Ivan actually did, because Ivan hit the Panhandle, but some of those outer rain bands actually impacted us and spawned a couple tornadoes that did damage. But Ivan's the one, at least in Central Florida, that doesn't get as much attention because of the other three. But I remember that one too.
And you talked a little bit about snow. I want to ask James, you and James both. Carolina winters. I'm surprised you have any hair left, Rob, because it's so frustrating to forecast here.
Oh, there's some.
It is. We always kid Brad Panovich. He had hair before he moved here, but it's so frustrating to forecast winters here in the Carolinas.
Oh, you aren't kidding. With the first time I saw the snow, I was excited because I'd been in Florida for 10 years. So I was literally running outside like, yay, I haven't seen this in 10 years. But after that, I'm like, it really is a headache, and I still have it, and I will show it to anyone who wants to see it. But there was this most recent storm back in February, I think, where the rain-snow line was right across Charlotte. And the National Weather Service was going, I think, 10 to 12 inches actually for the Charlotte area. And I got on the chat and said, hey, guys, I don't know about this. I think the rain-snow line will be a little bit further north. I got 33 for a low tonight. I think there's going to be more rain than snow. I'm thinking, only a couple of inches. Two of the guys from the Weather Service, a professor from a local school, I won't say which, two other chief meteorologists in the market all get on the chat and tell me why I'm wrong and why we're going to get 10 inches of snow. Just for the record, I was like, I'm going to want to show this to someone someday. I screen grabbed it and saved it. So if anyone wants to see it, but yeah, it's because that's the problem is that we are here in the Carolinas, we are always on that border, whether it could be anything. It could be rain, snow, sleet, freezing rain, and trying to figure out which is which and how much you're going to get of the other one is really a challenge.
Yes, I know Ricky has some memories of that storm. I know that Joey and I were actually in Oklahoma City, and we're looking back and we're like, man, we're missing the snowstorm of the year, and then wake up and heard it was only like 3 inches of snow. We're like, that wasn't bad.
No, you didn't miss anything at all. I didn't miss anything at all.
I had a whole campus debris at me, so don't. It was bad too, but. UNCC weather had a night. I mean, we did okay. We forecasted 4 to 6, and we got 3, but it's not. We didn't bust horribly, but still, they had school the next day, so that was bad enough to most people.
That's all that matters. You have school. That's all that matters. Everyone's mad.
We just got a tweet. Dr. Shepard wanted to make sure he let us know. Go Dogs. Don't worry, Scotty. I already told him go Gators.
Thank you.
He also tweeted us a picture. His current view right now, they're taping Weather Geeks, so they're over there doing their thing, trying to catch up with us.
Yeah, Dr. Shepard's been on our show, and he's a great guy to interact with. So we appreciate Dr. Shepard for tweeting us. But James, what is your thoughts? Because I believe you grew up in New York, correct? So you're kind of used to the snow.
Yes and no, because whether I was working or younger and trying to figure out whether we were going to go to school the next day, I grew up on Long Island, so we don't have the same setup quite like Carolinas do, but we've got that warm ocean breeze, and that would just destroy forecasts. Even though the guy 20 minutes down the road was buried and didn't have school for a week, we had to get up the next morning and go to school because it was raining, and so that was just that is pretty much my childhood. Just this constant thought of waking up in the morning, looking out the window, and like, oh.
Just rain.
Just rain.
Yeah, and go ahead, Ricky.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to switch to something different.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, Rob, what have you seen your viewers like? I mean, I know living in Florida, they didn't really ask about snow, but around here it seems like everybody gets upset at the meteorologist when it doesn't snow. So with you putting out that forecast of not having as much forecasted as others, did you get any feedback from that? Besides the professionals?
From the professionals and from the people within the newsroom, I did have a couple of people saying, well, why are you going lower and so-and-so's going higher? But I didn't get too much blowback here. My first TV job in Maryland, there was a case where I was going 1 to 3 inches, and I think the Weather Channel for our area up in Maryland was going like 6 to 12 or something ridiculous, and one of the other channels was going with them 6 to 12. And I did have a woman call and blast me, tell me how irresponsible I was being, and I wasn't preparing everyone for the snowmageddon that was coming, and I need to be telling people to go out and stock up their shelves and that sort of thing. And she's really, really upset with me, and I said, okay, call me tomorrow. call me when it's done. And we got. I don't even think we got an inch. It was like just a dusting to a slightly less than an inch of snow, and that was it. I didn't hear from her. But no, with this most recent one here in Charlotte, the questions came more afterwards. Even though I was still a little lower, I think I went 5, ended up going 5 to 7, so I kind of split the difference, which was still way high. And still the next day, questions for why didn't it snow more? Why didn't it snow more? Why didn't it snow more?
I find it so funny how, and snowfall forecasting here is just, you got to be perfect at it. I mean, just one little mess up and it totally blew the forecast. But I've realized just with our little area up here in the foothills, if you don't give them 5 inches of snow, people are upset. I mean, 3 inches is not enough. If you forecast 5, you better give them 5.
You better get the 5.
Right.
And you know what I've noticed just in the few months I've been here, the way, at least in Charlotte, our television viewing area is shaped, it's such a array from like the South Carolina up into the mountains. You could have like 2 completely different scenarios. There it goes.
Yeah, and there it is.
I don't know how they came up with that shape, by the way.
Yeah, I don't either. It goes just from here down to there. Yeah, really weird.
And so that kind of makes the storytelling a little difficult because you're broadcasting, you're talking to the masses, and you're trying to make it relatable to everybody. And what's happening in the mountains, this may not be happening in South Carolina. So
it really is. I mean, you take a Northwest Flow event, and it's snowing like gangbusters up in Boone and Avery County, and over the foothills you may get a few flurries. And in Charlotte, it's sunny and 50 degrees. So I mean, it is
sunny
really
day,
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is real hard to do that for our forecast area. It's so difficult to forecast for.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but I enjoy the challenge, and believe it or not, snow is one of my favorite things to forecast. Just because I like a good challenge, and it's something that everyone pays attention to. I can go out there and say it's going to be sunny and 72, and may hit exactly 72, but no one will ever say, "Nice job on the forecast today." 5 inches, predict 5 inches, get exactly 5 inches, and you get the feedback, and people pay attention to that. So that to me is part of the fun.
Yes, very very true. Ricky, I know you had you just kind of wanted to change the subject, so go ahead.
Well, we're getting close to the end of our hour here, so I'd be letting Rob down if I didn't bring in Goes R because he was so prepared for that. So
I am.
Talk a little bit about that, Rob.
I came with notes. Part of the conference in Raleigh, one whole day actually was spent on Goes R, which is the next generation of weather satellites that will launch on the Ides of March in 2016. The first one, there's actually going to be 4 of them total that will launch over the course of the next several years, 2016, 2017, and then eventually 2020. But the new capabilities of the satellite are awesome, and they gave us some previews, or at least as best as they could. And it's got 16 bands instead of the current, which is 5, capable of visible satellite images as good as half a kilometer compared to our current 1 kilometer. infrared bands as good as 2 kilometers compared to our current 4 kilometers, and images as much as every 30 seconds instead of, in some cases now, we only get images every 30 minutes. So it's the capabilities, not just of the images themselves, are amazing. I don't know, I was going to try to pull it up on the screen here, but if this is actually a sample that they showed us based on, so the one in the middle, I don't know if you can even tell, if you can even see, the one in the middle is 1 minute data. So that's the 1 minute data right there. And you can, the advantage is you can actually see the overshooting tops develop as they happen, so you know that the thunderstorm is getting strong and or severe before it's too late, whereas the other one, this is that same thunderstorm only once every 30 minutes, and by the time you see the overshooting top, it's too late. So that's just, I don't know if that even shows up all that well on a web camera, but so not only we're getting, you know, higher resolution both spatially and temporally, but there's also, again, since we're getting 16 bands, we're getting a whole bunch of new information that we didn't get before. For example, we're getting a lightning mapper that will map not only cloud-to-ground lightning, but lightning, period, and all over the globe. So not just right now, you know, most of our lightning data is just over the United States or just over land. This will be global lightning data, and it updates in real time. And studies have shown that whenever you see a sudden uptick in lightning, a thunderstorm is likely to produce a tornado. And they showed us examples of where a thunderstorm all of a sudden went from producing a couple strikes to hundreds of strikes, and then minutes later dropped a tornado. So now we're going to have the ability to actually pinpoint thunderstorms that say, okay, that one, based on the lightning, is probably going to drop a tornado. We're getting better ozone data, and you might think, oh, ozone, that's nice for air pollution or for, you know, doing research on, you know, chlorofluorocarbons or whatever. But studies have also shown that with high enough detailed ozone data, you can actually figure out where there's clear air turbulence. You get waves in the upper part of the troposphere and stratosphere, and those waves actually help to bring the ozone down from the stratosphere into the troposphere. So if you can see that on the satellite, you know that, okay, that's an area where there's clear air turbulence. And now we're going to be able to tell airlines, all right, stay away from this area, even though there's no clouds based on the ozone data. There's likely to be severe turbulence in that area. So just the amount of data that we're going to be able to get that we haven't had access before is going to be incredible. Launches next March. It'll take them about 6 weeks. They said to actually get it into position and get it ready to start giving us data. So sometime in May or June of 2016, we'll be starting to send down data. We'll initially only be sending data to the folks at NOAA NESDIS, and so it won't be available to the public while they test it and make sure it's accurate and do the ground validations. And if everything's working, then within 6 months, so by the end of 2016, we should be getting actual new satellite data, and with, again, possibility of doing every 30 seconds at half a kilometer resolution. So we'll be able to see all the details of the thunderstorms, the overshooting tops, and really help us to predict when a thunderstorm is going to be severe before it gets severe, before it's too late. Really exciting stuff.
Who's launching this satellite, though? I'm a little concerned after recent developments of space.
Yeah, good point. It's a good question. I want to say it's going to be launched in California, Vandenberg Air Force. I think they said it was Vandenberg Air Force Base. To be honest with you, I can't remember where they said they were going to be launching it from, but or what rocket they're going to be launching it on. But I think it's the Delta IV. I think it's not going to be SpaceX, but.
I'd hate for us to blow up more than just food.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who is actually doing the launch, but it's
Someone
not
get
SpaceX.
Tony Rice on the horn here real quick, and we'll figure it out. But
yeah.
Hey, Rob, I actually have a question for you about that.
Yeah.
You may know the answer to. So currently, as I understand it, they're the two GOES, at least the ones that are active, one over the East Coast, one over the West Coast. They're going to do all of that with one just orbiting in the middle, or how is that? Or is it orbiting?
No, that's the other thing that they don't even know yet is where it will go. We've got 3 satellites up there right now, GOES 13, GOES 14, GOES 15, and GOES 15. GOES 14 is in standby mode, basically waiting for either GOES 13 or GOES 14 to die. And this next one, the GOES R, will eventually become GOES 16 when it's operational. And they don't know yet where it will go. They're basically, it's going to be a last-minute decision based in part on which satellite that's up there now needs to be replaced more immediately. There's some arguments that if every satellite that's up there now is still operational, that the new GOES R should go to the East Coast because that's the higher population. We should get the best satellite covering the more densely populated areas. Others say no, it should go over to the West Coast so we can actually see the waves and everything coming in from the Pacific better and get better forecasts. So they're, even within their own organization, they said there's some infighting as to where it should go and where it will go. But basically the current plan now is whichever satellite needs to be replaced the most, that's where it'll go. So it'll either go over the East Coast or go over the West Coast of the U.S. And then eventually the next one that will launch in 2017 will cover the other coast.
If I get a vote, I want the West Coast. I want better forecast.
Okay.
Can we just?
I would like the East Coast. Yeah, should we take a vote here? Take an online poll.
Rob, this is for you and James as well. With James working in social media, kind of a hot topic. We were talking about the color files of severe thunderstorm watches. One day, I think it was this week or something like that. Severe thunderstorm watch from basically Florida to New York, and if you look on some of the local weather pages, the local forecast offices, there are all these different colors. Do you guys see this in the next year or so maybe being more uniform, or I can know a severe thunderstorm watch is going to be yellow, or I know a tornado watch is going to be red, or a flood watch is going to be green? James, I ask you with the social media side of people correlating colors and severity. And Rob, I ask you for just clarification for you guys. It's easier for you to communicate that to your followers. And I know that Senate just passed or is wanting to put a bill in where we can come together and make weather communication a little bit more easier for everyone. So kind of get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that was a hot topic of discussion at the conference here in Raleigh a couple of weeks ago, is trying to get that more uniform across not just all branches of NOAA and the National Weather Service, but among broadcasters, and then of course picking again what color should be used for what watch and what warning and that sort of thing. I would like to just see, the National Weather Service put out, here's an RGB scale. This is what this is what we're currently using. Let's all get on the same page. So then we could program all of the weather computers here in the Weather Center to say, all right, when there's tornado warning, use whatever 00255. But yeah, that was a topic of conversation. Based on the presentations of the people I talked to at the conference, that is something that the National Weather Service is very aware of, and they are working on. They are in the process of making changes. They're just, the only question now is how much are they going to change? Whether they're going to go all the way towards something like what the UK does, or whether it's going to be more of a modern modification of what we currently have. But there are changes coming probably along those lines.
On social media, I would say in my experience, I haven't noticed too much of a problem, just in the fact that because when we are tweeting out, say, a warning or something, a lot of times we're putting in the text what the location is, what the warning, and then the image a lot of times is radar. So I haven't noticed from a digital standpoint, at least in our office, any confusion with the public when it comes to the mapping colors. But I wasn't actually aware of this discussion, so that's something I'll watch for when we're putting out images. But a lot of times they're coming from Rob or Nick as to what the graphic would look like.
It's confusing because if I go to the GSP office, one day a severe thunderstorm watch may be orange, the next day it may be pink or green, and it's just, I feel like more if we could just come to an agreement of this is what each watch needs to be, this color, that color. And one more question before I kind of wrap up my part. And Ricky, I want to get your take on this as well, because in our little chat that we do on Facebook, a private chat, you had some frustrations as well, and I want to take this to James and Rob. We're almost a year into the new SPC categories. There's 5 of them now. I want to get your guys' opinion. How do you think they've done so far? Do you think that it's been easier to communicate, or do you still think it's kind of confusing for not only yourself but the public? I mean, I look at them and sometimes slight, enhanced, marginal, they all kind of say the same thing to me, but I want to get your guys' opinion on that.
I will agree. The wording is bad. The slight, enhanced, the marginal, I think that's really confusing. The new scale that they put out, and that was actually a topic of conversation too, is how much research went into that scale and developing that new, the green, the yellow, the red, the orange, the red. That scale, I think, is fantastic and is really well done. The wording, I agree, is bad, but the scale that they put out and the explanations with that, I think, was really well done. It's, I think, easy for people to understand. That I can tell you, based on what we talked about at the conference, they put a lot of work into that, and I think it paid off in this case, because that is real easy to understand. Green, okay, not bad. Yellow, okay, that's kind of bad. Orange, okay. Red, purple, all right, now we're getting there. That, I think the scale was well done.
I would say even just last weekend, and I don't know if this is good or bad, you guys can tell me, I got fed up with the words. So I was using the words. I said, oh, you know, we got a marginal risk. That's about a 3 out of 5 if we were to break these down into numbers. But I even feel like the word marginal and 3 don't come across the same way. Like 3 sounds higher to me than marginal. So I'm still finding that I am having a hard time explaining to people what they are. But I think it's an ongoing discussion.
It is. We had Jared Geyer on from the SPC a couple of months ago, and we talked about this. And I told him, I was like, if I have a vote, you know, if you're just asking Joe Q public, I would love to have the number scale. I think numbers are a little bit more easier for people to comprehend. You know, if it's a level 1 or a level 2 day, but then when you get to level 3 or 4 or 5, you know, that kind of heightens your sense of awareness. But it is kind of frustrating and kind of communicating to the public, you know, this is an enhanced day or a slight day. You know, if I hear the word slight, I don't think anything's really going to happen. So, you know, it's kind of a work in process. But I just want to get your guys' opinion on that, what you thought.
A few thoughts from me on that, and I've talked to Dr. Jasko a few times, Dr. Susan Jasko up at the University of California, Pennsylvania. I may have messed it up. I apologize to her if I did. But anyway, she believes we should get rid of the hurricane scale. And maybe she's not that off by it, because when you think about it, people get locked on the numbers. And I'm afraid, Scotty, that if we do just numbers, a Category 3 is suddenly just going to become the new standard, just like the hurricanes are. Cat 1, not bad. Cat 2, not too bad either. But, you know, it kind of sucks if a Cat 1 destroys your house in a tornado, or that Joplin tornado happens in a slight risk again. That's your bad day. And it's the same thing we run into with the hurricane scales. On the other side, though, the marginal and slight has now helped us communicate at WCYB, because we're able to put a graphic area on the C-text, which when we're drawing up maps or making maps really helps communicate the area that's most at risk for severe weather, compared to the past where it was just a C-text and there was really no drawing or map or anything, and you kind of just had to verbalize where it was.
Yeah, this is definitely an improvement over C-text. It's not perfect, but it's definitely an improvement over C-text.
Hey, Joey, why don't you inform Rob of your C-text formula?
My C-text formula, basically, and you can ask any storm chasers ever chased North Carolina. If there's a C-text, it's time to go chase. Once it goes moderate, it's done. Never fails. I promise you. Ricky can tell you. Ricky can vouch for it too.
That's true. We did get a tornado that day. That was a slight at the beginning, and then went to 10% hatch. But who knows?
I've seen more tornadoes in a C-text than I've ever seen in a moderate or a high for that matter. But that's because I never chased any high risk setups. So
We've got one guy in our local area I've noticed on the Hamnet. I don't know if you guys have noticed either. That does a really good job, like storm surveying. He seems to always be like right behind the cell, like right after it moves through. He'll be on the radio and relaying back information. So, do we have a large chase community in the Carolinas, or just a handful of really active folks?
It's really a handful. Ricky probably knows more of the guys now. I started doing it when I was 14. I got out with a friend of mine that had a vehicle, and we started chasing then. And now I'm married with kids, so I don't get out as much as I used to. Back then, it was a very, very small community, but I guess that was right around the Twister age, when that came out, that kind of thing. And now you got storm chasers and stuff like that. So there's definitely more. A lot of guys who are in college. There's a lot of college groups out there chasing. There's not a lot, but there's, I would say, active chasers, maybe 20, 30-ish around the area, probably something like that.
Yeah, there's a few from UNC Charlotte and also a few from NC State. And so you add them up, it's probably about in the 15 to 20 range, or as Joey said, maybe closer to that if you include folks outside of college, because there's a lot of students like at UNCC who want to go but oftentimes don't, thankfully, and don't get themselves into bad situations. But talking on the ham side, though, we've had John and a few other folks from the Charlotte ham radio group on before talking about how they do stuff, and they do a really good job of keeping the nets up and getting all that going. So there's a really large, from what I understand, ham radio following in the Charlotte area, which is nice for GSP and all the other weather service offices because it helps them get the reports really quick. So
just the other day, they were having a hard time, I think, picking up a wind event in Charlotte, that severe thunderstorm that came through. I don't remember what night it was now, but they were trying to figure out what the winds were, and they couldn't figure it out. And they pretty much just turned to the ham community and the Skywarn spotters and say, "What are you seeing?" And I think it was that data that led to the bulletin.
Mm-hmm. All right, Scotty. I've got 5% battery and another commitment, so I'll let you take things from now on, and you can do as you like.
I was going to say, it's coming up on 9 o'clock, and I know Rob's got a 10 o'clock broadcast, so we got to get him off so he can get ready for the show tonight. Joey, do you want to ask your final question before I kind of wrap up? I know you always like to kind of ask this final question to everyone.
Yes. And this goes for both you guys. Both of you just go ahead and chime in. I'll let Rob maybe answer first, James can answer second. All of our guests, we always like to ask our final question. For anybody that's in the weather enterprise, we have a lot of teachers that watch our show, students that watch our show, things like that. What is the one piece of advice that you can give, say, a teacher that's grooming a student to maybe go into the field of meteorology, or a student themselves who's looking forward to a career in meteorology? What's the one piece of advice that you would give them?
James, you or me?
You can go first. Unless you need time to think.
I would say computers. That's the one thing that, and every time I go out to visit schools, and that's one thing that kids ask me a lot is what should I do if I want to be a meteorologist? I say get comfortable with computers. I mean, if you look around my office here, I think I've got 12 just in the office here. So that's one thing that I tell kids: get comfortable with computers, get comfortable not just using a computer, but get comfortable programming a computer, and that's my one bit of advice. And along those lines, by the way, and before we run out of time, one thing that came out of the conference in Raleigh, the AMS is in the process of developing the guidelines that will eventually, possibly someday, become the digital seal of approval. You're already familiar with the AMS television seal of approval. Being on the broadcast board, I am highly involved, if not chairing up that effort. So if you guys have any advice, anyone here or anyone watching has any advice on what those guidelines should be or what you think should be part of that digital seal of approval, let me know.
We can definitely sit down and have a discussion on that.
As you say, that's
figured.
that's good info. We Joey and myself, along with Chris White, the other guy that we all work with, we are in the process of getting our NWA digital seal. So I'd love to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on that probably.
It goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Who's sending out the information and whether or not they're credible. I think my recommendation, and I said this to a young child we actually had come by our morning show a couple months back who's really into weather. I told him, or told his mother, to look up when the upcoming Skywarn classes are, because there's not really an age requirement there, and it allows really anyone, but in this case kids, to connect with the National Weather Service, know that there are other people out there who really like what they're doing, and even if they just walk away with a few tidbits from those seminars, I think it would really excite them and get them really engaged the next time they see something, or can tell somebody, hey, you see that's so-and-so, and I think that would kind of set them on a good, confident course to get involved, meet some people, network, and learn more about weather.
That's a great point, James. The Skywarn classes, I don't know, we have 3 or 4 in our local area, in the Charlotte area, a year, so they're pretty accessible, and you can find that information, I think, on the National Weather Service GSP page. I think they kind of post when they're going to be doing those, so a great bit of information. Well, guys, we appreciate you coming on. We'll let you kind of plug your social medias and how everyone can get in touch with you. James?
I'm at James Brierton, at Fox 46 News. Those are our Twitter platforms, our Periscope platforms. We're on Facebook. That's huge for us. There's somebody looking at that Facebook page 24 hours a day, so that's a great place for you to drop some content. And I think my boss would be mad if I didn't say, by the way, download our app, because it's another great way for us to kind of scream at you on the go, like, hey, there's weather happening. So.
Very good. Rob?
At Fox46 Rob on Twitter, and at Fox46 Rob on Facebook as well.
Very good. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back on anytime.
Thanks for inviting us. Appreciate it. Good time, guys.
No problem. All right, guys, it's a little bit after 9. I don't think Joey had a rant. Joey, did you have a rant?
Yeah, I was going to do something quick. Maybe even if you guys are still there for a second, they might throw something in.
Sure.
It was just a quick thing that happened the other day, and in case some of you are just joining the show that I haven't done a rant recently, but what I normally do is I see something that's going on in the weather world, I like to bring it up and maybe have a little rant. And this is something that happened the other day in St. Louis. There was another, and it's happened before. It happened in Chicago a few years ago, and you guys probably know where I'm going with this already. But there was a severe thunderstorm, possible tornado, moving towards St. Louis at the exact time there was a baseball game going on. However many people were in there, I don't know the numbers, but and like I said, this happened, I guess, a couple years ago at a football game in Chicago, and I'm just wondering how many times is this going to happen before something is done. It seems like there's nothing going on. Here's the storm is making its way straight for the stadium. Everybody's just there. Everybody's sitting in their seats or making their way to their seats as the game was getting ready to get started. And, I mean, eventually it's going to happen. Eventually one of these stadiums is going to get hit. Hopefully it's at a time maybe there's not a game going on, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually. And I'm just wondering, when are we, not just us in the weather community, but the guys who run these stadiums, who are putting on these shows, Major League Baseball, the NFL, when are these people going to start taking this threat serious? I mean, when are we going to get proactive with this? I mean, are we waiting to be reactive? Is that what it is? We're going to wait until it happens and say, oh, well, we should have done this. And I'm not taking sides in this matter at all, so don't send me hate mail. But I take, like, the Confederate flag issue that's going on right now. All of a sudden this guy shoots up a church in Charleston, and now we want to remove the flag. Well, if that was the problem, then why wasn't it removed before? And it's the same thing. It's this, we're reacting to things instead of being proactive. And I'm just wondering, when's it going to happen? When are we all going to sit down? We're all going to come to the table, and I'll use James Spann's mahogany digital table or whatever. I mean, when are we all going to sit down and discuss this issue on what are we going to do? What is going to be the plan? If a tornado hits a stadium with everybody in the seats, it's going to be bad. Okay, I don't think anybody has to argue that point. But when are we going to sit down and actually say, all right, listen, if there's a threat for tornadoes this day, if it's a high threat, for heaven's sake, if there's a tornado warning, a county away, when are we going to start moving people? Where are people going to be? Where can we put 15,000 people in, Wrigley Field if a tornado is headed right for it? What are these options, and when is this going to actually become a discussion. And if you guys have an opinion on it, throw it in. Go right ahead.
Yeah, my only thought was certainly to anybody who's organizing an event to make sure they've got somebody on staff, on lookout, authorized to do this. And I don't want to speak for the National Weather Service, but it sounds to me like chat might even be a great avenue for that, for these extraordinary events. But I think the bottom line, too, is, and I would say to anybody who's sitting there, you know, we've all got smartphones. If you're looking at it and you just don't feel right about what you're seeing and the organizers aren't doing anything, I would just encourage everybody to be ultimately responsible for your own life, too. Hopefully the people in charge would make the correct recommendations, but you know, I think that's one of the nice things about our access to data information now is we can kind of all take part in this, take a role in it.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and not to toot our own horn, but I'm going to. You know, Burke Weather here, Scotty. Anytime there's an event in our area that we cover, we always offer. We'll come out for free. We'll come out and hang out. Just be there in case they need our advice. In case something's going on, we do it for every home Crawdads game, the Hickory Crawdads. Every game of the year, we're on. We have somebody on staff in the building or in the stadium covering that event. And I mean, and I hate to say that I hate to tell people to go out and volunteer their time when it's your time. But I mean, is that a way to maybe at least get this thing started? For the local guys, for somebody who's in their market to say, for like you guys, there's a Panther game. You say, hey, you know what? Weather doesn't look too good today. I'm going to come down and hang out at the stadium today because I want to make sure that you guys know what's going on and everybody's going to be safe. I mean, is that maybe an option? Maybe that's something to at least get this conversation started.
No, that is a good idea, and I know that does happen. I know, like I can tell you from Florida, we had a pretty good relationship with some of the theme parks. The Daytona International Speedway had a pretty good relationship with the university right next door for that kind of thing. But I wonder the same thing that you do. Do all of these stadiums, do they have a plan? I wondered even just for this upcoming weekend with the 4th of July, we got Sky Show, we got that street party from 2 to 6 right outside of BB&T Ballpark. And, it's typical summer. We're expecting the typical summertime thunderstorms. Not that necessarily that they're going to be severe, but you could easily get a storm over uptown that produces a ton of lightning. You got thousands of people outside. Where do those people go for cover? So I was wondering that same thing. And maybe your suggestion is a good one. Maybe I should just call BB&T Ballpark and say, hey, what's the plan? Because I'll be out there anyway. What's the plan? If a thunderstorm comes over and we get a ton of lightning, where do all these people go?
Yeah. And that's the thing, and we offer this to any organizations, companies, whatever in our area. We offer to, hey, if you guys are worried about you're not sure what to do and you need to make a plan, we'll do it. We'll come out with you. We'll help you figure it out. And I mean, I don't know if maybe they don't think that this is a possibility. They don't know what to do, so they don't want to say they don't know what to do. I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but I mean, like you were saying, we've seen lightning strikes 15 miles away from a storm. Do these guys even know that that's possible? Do they know that a storm, over Huntersville could easily throw out a lightning bolt in downtown Charlotte?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they do. If they do know, it doesn't seem like they know. I don't see anybody jumping up and saying, hey, look, we've got a plan. Look, here's what it is. I don't see that. And
yeah.
It would sure make me feel a lot better if I did.
I'm hoping that they do, and we just don't know about it. But yeah, I would like to know.
Right.
Maybe that's a Fox 46 investigative story there, James.
I'm seeing tomorrow's morning meeting now. I have a story idea.
I can tell you, yeah, and I know we're quickly way over our time, but yeah, I was at the Crawdads game last night. I didn't leave till 11:30, 11:45 because we had a 2-hour lightning delay, and they value our input. They're the people that say, hey, we're not weathermen. We don't know what we see here on radar. All I see is a green or yellow or red, orange. And they say, well, what's the time frame? How hard is this rain going to be? How gusty is the wind's going to be? So it is pretty cool to see some companies and some organizations be proactive about it. And I just do hope that many more will come to that, and we don't have to see that bad event to bring more light to the situation. So good topic, and we'd love to. Hopefully, I think we've reached out to a few people. The Capitol Weather Gang actually wrote an article in the Washington Post a couple of days ago. So we're wanting to get this topic talked about on our show. So hopefully we can do that, and love to have James and Rob back in to maybe set in on the panel and discuss this.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Well, we're quickly over 9 o'clock, and I know our guests got to go. So next week, we're talking about the Myrtle Beach tornado of 2001 that happened on July the 6th or 7th. We're going to be talking with Ed Piotrowski, Chief Meteorologist down at WPDE in Myrtle Beach, as well as Meteorologist in Charge Stephen Path at the National Weather Service in Wilmington. So we're looking forward to having those guys on. Kind of remember the tornado and all the epic videos that's come from this. All you got to do is go to YouTube and type in Myrtle Beach tornado, and it's there. A lot of videos. So we hope to see you next week, and we hope you have a great week. Stay safe during the 4th, and watch out for those evening thunderstorms. For everyone at Carolina's Weather Group, I'm Scotty, and I'll see you next week.
Bye, Psycho.